Welcome back to Resistance Chicks. We're your hosts, Leah and Michelle. Today is the 28th of October, 2018. It's a Sunday. It's 1 o'clock or a little bit after. It's our European and UK news segment. However, something happened yesterday. We went to a friend's harvest party. We were gone all day long. While we were gone, Justin Hughes sent me a message because apparently a Jewish synagogue in Pittsburgh, here in the United States, was attacked via a shooting. Now, I don't know. I haven't looked up the latest updates. I know as of yesterday,
11.
The guy had gone in and he was engaged with police. He exchanged fire with the police.
Let me give you some of these bullet points.
Let's have it.
This is really sad, guys. And this is when all the lefty and the righty Jew haters can just check it at the door, baby. Because innocent people died.
Yeah.
What we know so far, 11 are dead.
Wow.
6 are injured after gunmen stormed the Tree of Life Synagogue at the corner of Wilkins and Shady Avenues. The shooter was injured and cornered on the 3rd floor of the synagogue.
Now, they were going to do a sweep for explosives. Did they find any?
Not that I know of. Gunman preliminary identified as Robert Bowers, 46-year-old white male. I love that I put that in there. He reportedly shouted, "All Jews must die," at police as he was being subdued. The subject killed congregants in the main level who had gathered to observe the Sabbath, then went downstairs. In the basement, a second congregation had gathered. He shot them, then fled to the 3rd floor. There, Bowers exchanged gunfire with police and injured 2 police officers and 2 SWAT team members.
Wow.
The
police were there that fast.
Bowers was eventually injured and surrendered to police by crawling to them before being taken to the hospital.
Wow.
Bowers posted on the social media network Gab an hour before the attack that he was going in. He regularly spewed his hatred of Jews and of President Trump on that website. Trump first called the shooting a shame and said the synagogue should have his own security. According to the Anti-Defamation League, the attack was likely the deadliest attack on the Jewish community in the history of the United States. Trump said that what happened today was a horrible, horrible thing. After stepping out of Air Force One in Indianapolis for an event, he said it looks definitely like an anti-Semitic crime. That is something you wouldn't believe could still be going on.
Well, almost now more than ever, though. Actually, I feel the anti-Semitic hatred so much stronger than I did my entire life. It's become popular. It's become mainstream. It's become kitschy.
Yeah, and it's on the right and the left.
It's bipartisan.
When you look at what is happening in the world today, and you see that Israel does get involved in some battles that they shouldn't, just like the United States.
Right.
It doesn't mean that Jewish people should be shot up and killed in a synagogue no more than Christians in a church.
Right.
And when you believe that all Americans are doing all these wars, then you become a terrorist.
Right.
And you burn down the World Trade Center. When you believe that some people who might be Jewish, might not be Jewish, are doing bad things, and you correlate that with all Jews, you're no better. You're just as bad as an Islamic terrorist who sees all Americans as doing bad things.
Right.
You will never solve a problem by killing innocent people. You will never solve a problem by taking the law into your own hands. This was a crazed maniac, and I do think that a lot of, quote, conspiracy theories that started in truth get taken over by evil. There is an evil force out there that wants to kill innocent people. Just like Islam wants to kill people in the evil realm, okay? Not all Muslims want to kill people, okay?
Right.
So, and not all conspiracy theorists are anti-Jew, okay? This is one of the most horrific crime scenes I've ever seen, said Pittsburgh's public safety director, Wendell Hishrich. Speaking in Las Vegas, Vice President Pence condemned the shooting, saying there is no place in America for violence or anti-Semitism. Early Saturday, the president and reporters were heading to Indiana that this The president told reporters before heading to Indiana that the suspect in the synagogue shooting, whom he described as a madman, should receive the death penalty. We should stiffen up our laws in terms of the death penalty. When people do this, they should get the death penalty. They should very much bring the death penalty into vogue. Trump also suggested that the outcome of the shooting could have been prevented if armed guards were present at the synagogue on Saturday. This is a case where if they had armed guards inside, they would have been able to stop it immediately. It is something to talk about. I don't think we should live in a world where you need armed guards. When asked if all places of prayer should have guards, he said, I hate to think it that way, but it's certainly an option. This world has a lot of problems. We have seen churches when gunmen have opened fire that people who have been armed have taken a gunman down.
And I thought about that too. That was one of my first, I'm like, hang on. This guy was able to go to multiple levels, and nobody in that synagogue, it seems, and there may be details that come out later, but it seems nobody in the synagogue was carrying, or if they were, they didn't stand up to try to do anything about it.
Speaking of that, let's see. Where am I?
Sorry, guys, I'm trying to share this.
Share. From Joel Pollock. He says, we Jews have the Second Amendment and we should use it. He says there are two facts about anti-Semitism in America. One is that the United States is the least anti-Semitic country in the history of civilization, aside from Israel itself. The other is that anti-Semitism persists, nevertheless, and can be extremely violent. It has deep roots and remains for a few of society's losers attempting explanation for the shape of the cruel world as they misperceive it. We will never be completely rid of it, and we have to prepare for it. This has not changed since I was a boy growing up in Skokie, Illinois, a town haunted by the memory of the Nazi attempt to march through it and antagonize the many Holocaust survivors who relocated there after World War II. The morning after the town erected the statue in memory of the victims of the Holocaust, the underground resistance that fought it, the statue was covered in swastikas. You could defeat the hatred, but it never disappeared. By the time he was a teenager, he said he had become Skokie had become one of the most diverse communities in the country. As some of the more affluent Jews moved to the outer Chicago suburbs, in their place came new immigrants from all over the world, East and South Asia, free nations in Europe. And he says, then, right after he finished college, the unthinkable white supremacist from the neighboring affluent suburb went on a shooting spree on July 4th weekend. He started shooting Jews walking to synagogue on Friday evening, wounding 6. All survived. He drove to Skokie and shot and killed a black man. Former Northern University basketball coach Ricky Birdsong, whom this person happened to know, in front of his family as they were taking a walk. He shot several other people, all minorities, killing a Korean-American man. He said he went to the spot where Ricky Birdsong fell and wept. To this day, the event troubles him. It does not end. His own synagogue in liberal Santa Monica was vandalized in 2016. The fight against the Nazi march took place when Jimmy Carter was president. And it goes on to talk about how anti-Semitism is a hatred that is evil, and you can't ever defeat evil. But the best way to hold it back is with love, is with truth, is with honoring life, and having harsh consequences for those who allow evil to flow through them and to damage other people and to hurt other people. The synagogue shooting here, I'm going to show you, is not a partisan issue. This man, deranged man, was a quote-unquote Trump hater.
Which I think that, I don't know who put that picture together, the Express. They kind of tried to pick a picture that made him look similar to Trump. They play mind games like that, by the way.
He had a whole social media that hated Trump, said Trump was being led by the Jews. And I want you to remember that anti-Semite Farrakhan still has his little, I don't know if maybe he doesn't have his blue check mark, but he's still on Twitter, and he says, Jews are the synagogue of Satan. I'm not anti-Semite. I'm anti-termite. And it's just absolutely insane, the fact that Jew hating seems to be more in vogue.
I know, yeah.
On both the right and the left.
Right.
Way more than anything else. Remember, being a Jew is a race of sorts. Okay, I know it's a culture, it's a race, and it's racist.
So I'm reading in the comments just as a side note. Some of you guys are having the volume's a little bit low. I just checked. I have it turned up as loud as I can. The microphone, it literally is as loud as it goes as far as picking Leah and I up. Mm-hmm. If you're having trouble hearing, I apologize.
So our hearts and our prayers obviously go out to this, but what we've seen is the media, the establishment media, has been blaming Trump for this, which is really weird. Because Trump has been the most Jewish, pro-Israel president in a long time. Mm-hmm. He moved the embassy to Jerusalem.
Right.
His son-in-law is Jewish, and his daughter became Jewish. And he has a good relationship with the Jewish community. He's not, and I don't see how he said that the media. Many prominent figures in the establishment media invoked President Trump and his rhetoric in their response to the horrific shooting. A GQ writer said, straight up blame Trump and says he makes this possible. And a word to my fellow American Jews, this president makes this possible here. Where you live, I hope the embassy move over there where you don't live was worth it. So moving an embassy in Jerusalem caused this man to kill Jews, and it's Trump's fault for moving the embassy.
It's always going to be Trump's fault. Here's the deal. With the other guy the other day, they're trying to blame Trump.
She says, you know what? I take it back. When the President of the United States calls himself a nationalist, it's not a dog whistle. It's a whatever.
The guy that supposedly mailed the suspicious non-bombs. They said, listen, all of this rhetoric that we hear from Trump at Trump rallies, they pretty much accuse Trump of telling people to go out and bomb people. I mean, that was kind of how they came at it.
And he's none of the white supremacist terrorism.
And yet I'm curious, mainstream media and the rest of the like, if you're wondering maybe if all of your anti-Semitism, which is huge right now, contributed.
So Melania Trump says, my heart breaks over the news of Pittsburgh. The violence needs to stop. May God bless. God and unite the United States of America. Anna Navarro is supposedly a Republican on CNN. And she says, girl, you might want to tell your husband to stop saying white supremacists are good people, to stop blowing dog whistle by calling himself a nationalist, to stop lying and fanning hysteria about the migrant caravan, to stop leading chants against other Americans, be best, whatever. So that's just actually really weird. There's a lot of stuff in that statement. We know that Charlottesville, we know people were at Charlottesville. They didn't know that there was going to be some crazy white t-shirt, slick-haired setup.
I think it was a total setup.
Torchlight the night before. It was billed as Unite the Right rally, and a lot of people didn't get the memo. And Jason Kessler was, joining this alt-right movement. He was kind of crazy, and nobody really knew who he was, and they expected just to be around normal people who were like, hey, conservative, Trump, let's all unite together, I didn't know what an alt-right person was. I didn't know that I still don't even understand alt-rightness.
No, they just made it up. It's not a real thing.
And, a CNN commenter called Trump truly morally inept monster.
So our mom, Patriot Gallery, says MK Ultra, then he was encouraged by Louis Farrakhan last week. Here's the deal. I mean, why aren't they calling out Louis Farrakhan in a situation like this? Why aren't they calling out all of these anti-Semitic people if they're going to somehow try to say that Trump is responsible for the fake bombing?
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, we get a lot of anti-Semitic comments from viewers that I like, actually. And I get it. I get where they're coming from, but here is the deal. We, as Christians, consider ourselves grafted into the vine of God's chosen people. Okay, those are the Israelites.
Yeah.
And they trace all the way back to Adam and Eve, man. Jesus goes through that line.
Jesus is Jewish.
It's an amazing thing, all right? So,
all the disciples were Jewish.
It's okay to call out globalists.
Paul.
There are a lot of
Jew,
quote unquote Jews, right, that are globalists. We know this. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's just the truth. That is a fact. Just because Jewish people live in Israel and they want their nation to be sovereign and they want their nation to be in Jerusalem, in Israel, that does not mean that they participate in everything that we do disagree with from the Jewish government, from the Israeli government. Just like all Americans are not participating in the funding of heroin and the 17-year war in Afghanistan, supporting the Afghanis that have Baka boys. My government funds that. My tax dollars go there. So if you want to call out every Jew, start calling out every single American whose tax dollars fund Baka boys, where those Afghani men keep little boys and rape them at night. All right? If you're going to be that staunchly, what happens when you do that is you alienate people that could fight on your side to take down the bad people within the Israeli government and amongst Jewish people.
And so Caitlin Johnstone has the lefty anti-Semites on her site, and she's very pro-Palestine. But she has an article here, and I think that taking it from her point of view will really kind of really level the playing field here.
Let's hear it.
Here. On anti-Semitism, critical thinking, and conspiracy theory, she said, today a gunman attacked a synagogue in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, while shouting the words, "All Jews must die." The suspect, Robert Bowers, reportedly had a history of making anti-Semitic posts on social media and was taken into custody alive with multiple gunshot wounds. As of this writing, 11 people were killed. I don't have anything interesting or insightful to say about America's mass shootings other than to repeat the point I always make. The efforts of modern war propaganda on American psychology are widely underappreciated and ignored by scientific research. And that's true. There is crazy war propaganda in our own minds. I believe the subject of U.S. gun control is a bit outside her sovereign boundaries of Australia. So I appreciate that she doesn't tread on my rights. She says what she does have to offer is a brief description of her experience with conspiracy theorists about Judaism and Jewish people. As a fringe blogger who writes a lot about conspiracies, the impression those encounters have left her with. She says, just when I think this job can't get any weirder, I found out some guys been going around posting poorly made memes about how awful I am for not hating Jews. And this was a meme, you can actually see it, about her being a Jew lover. To be clear, when I talk about anti-Semites, I mean the actual bigots who promote hatred of Jewish people, paranoia about Jewishness, or any type of violence or mistreatment of Jews as a race. I do not mean people who voice legitimate criticisms of Israel and its government. And I think that is where I can go with people. If you have a legitimate criticism of what Israel is doing in different wars, or what you see they're doing with Palestinian people, I can see why you do that. I don't agree with it all the way, but I think that there's a conversation that needs to be had. But you're not hating the people, the Jewish people. Right? Totally different. And I can have a talk about Islam and love Muslim people, care for them, want them to have a good...
We were just checked out at a store not too long ago by a lovely Muslim woman from, where was she from?
Lebanon.
From Lebanon, and she was wearing the hijab, and she was as a cashier, and we had a meaningful exchange, interested in where she's from. I want to learn more about you as a person. Okay? And that's how we are supposed to exchange with other human beings. We don't have to have this hatred just because we may disagree on something. If we can have a commonality, we may be able to exchange ideas. And whether it's their side or our side, may win out in that exchange.
She's a lefty. She's like, I don't mean to question people who question the justification for the creation of Israel in the first place. There's a lot of, kind of some weird things that went down. She says, I don't mean to, I don't mean people who defend Palestinians, and I don't mean people who voice valid factual criticisms of George Soros or any billionaire who happens to be Jewish. I make this distinction because when I try to talk about anti-Semitism publicly, I get critics of Israel confusing the two groups, saying they only ever encounter people who absurdly call you an anti-Semite for condemning the slaughter of unarmed Palestinians by sniper fire. That's what she says. I don't see that happening, but that's what she says. Not people who are actually promote the hatred of Jews. And that many indeed be true for them in their cause, and that may be true for them in their case. But as someone who writes about a lot about oligarchy and media and the war in the Middle East, she most definitely finds herself brushing up against the pernicious mind virus of anti-Semitism on a regular basis. It typically happens one of two ways. I'll be there minding my own business, happily attacking CNN or decrying war propaganda against Syria or whatever, and then bam, some random person splats out one of those Jewish caricature memes on the lovely post I spent a lot of time and energy creating. It's always jarring and feels creepy and invasive at the same time as receiving an unsolicited, naked picture. They sort of sidle up alongside me on social media, making vague, side-mouth insinuations, which become increasingly specific over time, and therefore I know if they're telling me I need to name the Jew and talk about JQ. Okay, there's no Israel, but there are Jews. And they're hypo-ethnocentric, not superstition, just research-backed race realism. And through their ethnocentrism, they've consolidated power such a way, for example, they can get Bana to mouth BS for Tapper and justify U.S. intervention.
That's what one person says on her Twitter.
That's just some doofy nonsense in your mind. The dynamics of plutocracy, media manipulation, and imperialism all make perfect sense by themselves without adding moronic medieval Jewish conspiracy theories on top of them. She says, I really hate anti-Semites. I hate them. I hate them. I hate them. Not only are they vile racists whose particular brand of hatred should be easily recognized as uniquely toxic by anyone who's ever skimmed a history book, but they heap other layers of personal obnoxiousness on top of it as well. They'll accuse you of being a coward if you reject their pet medieval superstitions, but they themselves speak only in coded language and oblique side-mouth innuendo because they are too cowardly to come right out and state what they mean. Like this man yelled, all Jews should die. There is a hatred inside of these anti-Semites that believes that Jewish people, the ones who get up, who I'm friends with, who go to school, who go to church, who
amazing people,
who I see and they integrate. They're Americans, like they're in society. Like we're not even talking about a class of cultures. Like you wouldn't know a Jew by meeting them unless he's got a little babka on his head or whatever you call those things.
I don't know what they're called.
Or something like that. Like you wouldn't even know. I mean, like obviously the Orthodox Jews have the beards and stuff like that, but and we can talk about that. We can say, hey, that's not really biblical, but you do your thing. You know what I mean? She says they're arrogant, they're condescending, and they're impervious to reason, and and they always expect you to treat their vapid, slug-brained perspectives with the same respect you treat someone who is rigging a real argument using real facts. If you want to talk about George Soros, talk about George Soros. Talk about the fact that he turned his back on his fellow Jewish people, pretended he was like a Christian, and had a German soldier adopt him, and he went around looting other Jewish people's homes and watched them all get on top of on the trains to the concentration camp. Right. I mean, this man is more I'm more Jewish than this guy.
Kelly PB Fam says, my husband's brother Beth man had to leave the block that he lived in, which is where the shooter lived, via the cops and FBI, etc. And her friend, a Jew at the church, had a family that goes to that synagogue, but they didn't go yesterday. Praise God.
Wow. She says, more annoyingly, they derail some of the most important conversations that critical thinkers and skeptics of establishment narratives need to be having. She says, conspiracies happen all the time. But I wanted to kind of point these things out, that on the left and on the right, whenever you deal with conspiracies or, somebody did this, everybody brings up, this is whose swath of people says the Jews. Right. The Jews. First of all, you're not using critical thinking to say it's the Jews. Like every person who's born a Jew is like downloaded with some conspiracy map to take over the world. I know. Now, I would say in a lot of cases you could blame the Christians because we do have a call by God to go and make disciples of the entire world. Right. So, yeah. If you're seeing a bunch of people become Christians and do nice things, it's the Christians.
And I'll tell you something else. The Jews that do belong in the history of the conspiracy in this world, that do belong there. they actually weren't very Jewish. They didn't go to synagogue. They didn't have a faith in God. They didn't have a deep belief. They literally chucked that at the door. Okay? They may have had Jewish parents and a Jewish family, right? But they don't want that. The people that I see from a historical standpoint, okay, that were that way, didn't believe in their faith. And I'm not just talking about George Soros. I just mean by and large. So it is very difficult for me to have a conversation with somebody that just wants to blame all Jews when we have Jewish friends. We've had deep conversations about this stuff. You know, what about the Zionists? What do you guys feel about that? So we know a little bit better than maybe you guys who are all, not you, but anyone watching this. Like, we know these people.
Absolutely weird. Like, this guy has a blue check mark, whoever this doctor guy is. The Pittsburgh shooter made anti-Semitic comments during the shooting. Trump, who has incited violence and terror, has sent anti-Semitic tweets and once bragged he could shoot someone without losing votes. Think about that. Could you explain to me the anti-Semitic tweets that Donald Trump has ever...
I have not seen one. All I've seen is people from the left accusing Trump of being buddy-buddy and practically homosexual with Netanyahu.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. That's what we see. So you can't have it both ways. And that's what the left always wants in these situations. It doesn't matter. We're going to find a way. It doesn't matter if one moment we say that Donald Trump is kissing up to Bibi Netanyahu, and on the next moment we're going to say he hates all Jews. It doesn't matter that we're saying, look, they moved the embassy to Jerusalem and it benefits Israel, and at the next moment Trump hates Jews. I mean, you can't have it both ways, and they get caught in this web of lies when these kinds of things happen because they don't have any other way to spin it.
So here is Robert Bowers. He says, Trump was a globalist, not a nationalist. There is no MAGA as long as there is a kike infestation. It's a bad name for a Jew. It's like a
That's awful.
N-word.
Then why don't you say it out loud?
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, whatever. I'm reading.
QAnon, that should be taken off of Twitter.
Well, that was on Gab.
Oh, okay. Gab was shut down, York says.
QAnon is here to get patriots that were against martial law in the 90s to be the ones begging for it now to drain my swamp. But go ahead and keep saying you're winning. The character we've chosen for you is a good, strong white leader who is acting in the interest of his country. We must keep whites asleep for a few mere years so they are totally outnumbered by our non-white minions and can never regain their country. Do this and we'll keep your family safe and wealthy, and we won't tell anyone about your trips to Lolita Island.
Now,
yes, sir.
This is a Jewish person.
Yeah.
Says your character will appear to the public as a white racist. It's how we control whites. And then they have Trump saying, yes, sir.
Highest likes to bring invaders in that kill our people. I can't sit by and watch my people get slaughtered. Messier, he says, whatever your optics, I'm going in. And so this is a very messed up, deranged
You're
person.
going to see the hatred.
It's,
It's going to fly now at this point because you're going to have people that are going to back and support this guy.
So he says you can see that this guy, Robert Bowers, his profile clearly illustrates that he's a Nazi, that he admired Hitler, that he hates Trump, and he believes Trump is controlled by Jews, and he did not vote for Trump. That's all he was able to archive before everything was taken down. For the record, I did not vote for him, he says.
Wow.
He is a Nazi.
Chris Holman says, hate is not of God. To do evil in the name of Jesus is one of the worst sins. The evil actions of some never justifies the murder of others. Love your enemy. Pray for those that spitefully use you.
Yeah, well so I have tweeted this out, but this person has listed the names here of the people. They all seem older. Their ages are 75, 66, 97, 66, 59. He just went and killed a bunch of older people.
Wow.
Just massacred them. And I'm just really, really sorry. And there's not much else we can do is say that we're sorry and that God be with them and God be with their families. But we do have to...
I am interested... Okay, so I want to be as fair and balanced as I can.
Yeah, go ahead. I need some water.
And my question is, when we see that, like the fake bombs that just happened, and we automatically know in our guts false flag. when you see something like this happen, do we, in this instance, do we filter it through and see? I mean, is there anything in this specific instance that we're questioning? Does anything look fishy? Does anything smell wrong? False flaggy to you at all?
So here's the thing. Sometimes bad things happen, and sometimes it's not the CIA, MK Ultra, mind control. Okay, sometimes somebody is so filled with anger and hate that they do bad things. Hitler was filled with anger and hate. Okay, he was the conspiracy guy.
Right.
Sometimes there are the people who start the conspiracy. There are people who move forward with the hate. They move forward with the anger. You know, when you talk about the Rockefellers and the Carnegies and the Fords, you know, you can't just keep the circular reason where it's always somebody else's fault.
Right.
Sometimes, and I believe this is the case, this is this guy's fault. This is what he did. This is what he did. He hated Jews. He hated them. I mean, you're never going to get rid of all hatred.
Right. Well, for anybody that's questioning, the reason I brought it up is for anybody that's questioning, because I don't feel that it is either. But I do think that because of our channel, we do need to filter it through and maybe look at the facts.
How it's covered after the fact.
Exactly. Well, and not only that, but
taking a tragic, horrible situation and using it, the globalists using it. Right. Well, how can we use this to our advantage?
Right. Well, and who benefits? You need to look at it almost like a criminal investigation. Who benefits? We've got the anti-gun people, right? And in this instance, the guy hates Trump. So how do you reconcile that? It goes against itself, and so they would have planned it better, is what I'm saying. They would have found the Trump stickers
like the fake bombs
on the van. You know what I'm saying? They would have found somebody that...
All clues point to the fact that this is a crazy person who hates Jewish people.
Right.
And there was a whole war started from a crazy man who hated Jewish people. And there's going to be people left over from that.
Right.
There's going to be people left over from that. But as a conspiracy on the other side of this, I don't want to take away from the deaths of the people because it's awful. But Gab put itself up. They said, okay, you don't want Twitter and Facebook to censor you? Well, then you go start your own thing. Well, they did. Gab. And this man was on Gab. So, following this shooting, Gab was given notice by its hosting provider, Joynet. They have until Monday to move their website elsewhere, or they're just going to just stable the whole thing.
Wow.
In a Sunday tweet, Gab said, Joynet, or something like that, Gab's new hosting provider has just pulled our hosting service. They've given us until 9 a.m. on Monday to find a solution. Gab will likely be down for weeks because of this, working on solutions. And some of the responses have been, I'm really sorry for this happening to you. And you know what Gab said back? Please just think about the victims of the shooting. Because this is really bad. And if every person who posted on Facebook something, or
if Facebook was held responsible,
some suicides done on Facebook, was Facebook just totally taken down? You saw
not just suicide. You saw the girl.
Didn't you see that black man murder somebody on Facebook?
And you saw. I think that couple was live streaming like a Russian roulette. I think once, and then that was there was that teenage girl that kept encouraging that young boy to kill himself. You just need to kill yourself.
Oh my gosh, is Facebook going to be held accountable for like the bullying that happens and all the suicides? There's a lot of suicides via Facebook.
Right.
A lot of people getting, and so this is a conspiracy. Gab came under fire immediately because of this. Screw your optics, I'm going in. But nobody knows. He says, I can't sit by and watch my people get slaughtered. You don't know what this means. You have no idea what this could mean. So as a free speech person, unless it says, I'm going to go kill Jewish people, how are you supposed to know what his intention is?
Is Gab responsible for having the technology to filter every post and and send it to the FBI to look at?
And that is what we're talking about with Twitter and Facebook being regulated. if they are becoming the publishers,
Right.
if they are filtering, well, then they need to be held responsible.
Exactly.
Okay, but that's why under free speech,
So actually, in the sense that Gab did not filter, they can't be held responsible. They just said, "Listen, we're just giving you a platform. You can say whatever you want here. That's between you and God and whatever."
So why isn't Louis Farrakhan has tweeted the exact same rhetoric as the Pittsburgh shooter had in their Gab profile? So why isn't Twitter banned by PayPal and other things like Gab is? He said, this person says, despite my being very liberal and veering decidedly left on the political spectrum, I see this as a terrible thing. We need to be able to discuss these issues, and forcing certain viewpoints underground or out of the way is not right ever because, listen, look, you found him. You saw his posts.
Right.
You can pin it on him. You can use it against him in the court of law.
Right.
Okay? Unless you have incited hatred in a way that leads to violence, then your free speech is free speech. Now, you can say, okay, we're not going to use these words. We're not going to use curse words.
Right.
We're not going to use pornography. You know, but in that realm, you have
societal standards.
Right. Exactly.
Is what they are. Quinn on Facebook Live, I have no idea how to say your first name, says, seems interesting that anti-Semitism is on the rise as well as the religious movement of Messianic Judaism among Christian churches. My cousin became a Messianic Jew.
Wow, that's awesome. I know a handful of Messianic Jewish people. They're wonderful. I love them so much. And so our hearts and prayers go out to them. And this is our EU and Euro show. So we wanted to come to you with this first. But there are awful things and great things happening all over the world. And I don't want to take you guys from a whiplash to like happy, joy, sad. But being able to be mature enough to go from one horrible subject to another subject, that's what we have to do on this show. So I am going to lighten the mood a little bit with something that's a little bit odd.
This is so ridiculous.
Musician Sinead O'Connor converts to Islam and becomes Shudara David. Chart-topping Irish musician Sinead O'Connor, who scored a worldwide hit with her 1990 single Nothing Compares to You, has undergone a public conversion from Catholicism. It was a weird sect of Catholicism where she like made herself a priest. Weird. I'm not even kidding you. To Islam. Sharing her post on Twitter, and I watched it. It's a little bit interesting. She reminds me exactly of Lindsay Lohan. She was abused as a child. She says she was sexually and physically abused by her own mother. Oh my God. Weird. So that's going to mess you up. And Lindsay Lohan was really messed up, so she went and became Muslim. She can speak like Arabic, you know. Writing online, the musician announced that she had converted to Islam, chronicled her first, getting her first hijab, and posted a video of her singing an Islamic call to prayer. Shadada also posted an image, an imitation of the Nike Tick logo, which implored followers to wear hijab. Just do it. I am going to torture you with this moment of I am
really?
torture you.
No. Please don't.
Maybe turn it up down the bottom.
I don't want to. This hurts me.
She's saying Allah Akbar. I think it's an Allah Akbar moment. So there you have it.
Oh my
This is your brain. This is your brain on drugs. No.
Oh my goodness.
You know, sometimes people just need to test the waters, and see. I'm going to take a minute and see what other people are saying. And
Hey, Mark the Evangelist wants to know if Sinead will undergo FGM now.
That's a good question. Somebody says, it appears that Sinead O'Connor's spiritual guide endorsed draconian anti-freedom ruling of the ECHR enforcing Western blasphemy laws. Okay, so yeah. Her spiritual guide endorsed these anti-freedom rules. We're gonna talk about this blasphemy law that is in the European Parliament. It's in EU now. Here is her spiritual guide. Says that defaming the Prophet Muhammad exceeds the permissible limits of freedom of expression. So ruled the European Court of Human Rights. There is a woman who, I'm going to bring this up because this is pretty crazy. Oh, that's not the one. There's a lot of crazy things going on. Which is the one I want? No. Where's my anti-blasphemy law article? From what I understand, I guess I'm going to use this one. UKIP leader slams blasphemy law by the back door as Euro court upholds conviction for disparaging Mohammed. A woman held a couple of conferences where she said that Mohammed was a pedophile.
Right.
Kind of historical fact, if you read the Hadiths, which I understand put Aisha anywhere between 6 and 11. If you are attracted to a child between 6 and 11,
Pedophile.
You're a pedophile.
Pedophile.
So you're not defaming anyone. You're talking it as you're saying it as a fact.
It's a fact.
How come an Islamic imam can go and say,
Hi.
Aisha was 6 or Aisha was 7 or Aisha was 11, and aren't they defaming the Prophet Muhammad? But they're not, because they don't use the word pedophile next to it. Gerard Batten has slammed the European Court of Human Rights for upholding an Austrian woman's conviction for disparaging Muhammad, prophet of Islam, ruling that they had the right to restrict her freedom of speech. The woman, named as ES in the European Court's judgment, had suggested the Prophet Muhammad was a pedophile due to his relationship with his wife Aisha, who was married to the religious leader aged 6 and consummated her marriage to him at age 9, according to most but not all Islamic religious writings. The European Court agreed with the judgment of the Austrian courts that Muslims would find the woman's statements wrong and offensive, even if Muhammad had married a 6-year-old and had intercourse with her when she was 9. Isn't that pedophilia by definition? Like, isn't that abuse? Isn't that wrong? And ruled that they carefully balanced her right to freedom of expression with the rights of others who have their religious feelings protected, and to have religious peace preserved in Austrian society. I can't believe it. ES had argued that the courts had violated her right of freedom of expression. Article 10 suggests that everyone has a right of freedom of expression, and that this right shall include freedom to hold opinions and to receive and impart information and ideas without interference by public authority and regardless of frontiers. Proponents of the convention often fail to notice, however, that a subsection of Article 10 goes on to heavily qualify the right, authorizing states to impose conditions, restrictions, or penalties which it deems necessary for the purposes of national security, territorial integrity, or public safety, for the prevention of disorder or crime, for the protection of health or morals, and for the protection of the reputation or rights of others, for the preventing of disclosure of information received in confidence. In this way, it is quite unlike the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, with critics suggesting that the European Convention is actually something of a Trojan horse, allowing governments broad discretion to restrict free speech when it is used in a contentious way. This is actually very big. Gerard Batten, who has made a point of publicly criticizing Islam since taking over from Nigel Farage's short-lived successor, Harry Bolton, told Breitbart London that the European Court of Human Rights was introducing a blasphemy law through the back door.
I'm going to totally interrupt you.
Yeah.
Monolithic Dome says, Trump kept saying Leah, Leah, Leah at the Wisconsin rally for Republican. I'm like, yay, Leah. And
awesome.
That made me laugh out loud.
That makes me laugh out loud,
great.
too. Oh, my gosh. So this European Court for Human Rights thing is literally because they don't want Islamists to blow people up. So
Yeah.
it's for public safety, and I can,
No, you can't do that.
No, you can't.
You can't do it. And to put it.
I liked your face. Your face when you thought it through. You're like, no, No, you can't do that.
Hang on, Patriot
That was
guy.
really funny.
Patriot guy.
You're just talking about, I think you said Austria, the court that said that there's a balance between her freedom of speech and the peace between religions. Any court that sides with a religion that is breaking the law of pedophilia, the court is complicit,
They are.
and the court or the government, whoever said that, has to be arrested for complicity of using religion as an excuse to legalize pedophilia.
Yeah.
You can't do it. Keeping the peace, just not to hurt somebody's religious feelings, when it causes the court or the government to support and condone pedophilia, is not freedom of religion.
Thank you, Patriot guy.
It's condoning it. And you are a participant with that practice now.
You know, I did think about Sinead O'Connor switching. Somebody says here, and I thought I was having a midlife crisis. She goes from wearing like this priestly collar with a cross.
Okay, hang on. No, I have a thought on this. I have a thought on this. Okay.
And she says all scripture leads to Islam.
Okay, wait. As a woman, becoming a priest is what I would consider to be, if I'm not Michelle, let's just say, empowering to women, the height of feminism, and, you know, taking your women's rights. I can be equal to a man, and then you go from that to now you're worth less than half of a human on your birth certificate.
Right.
Okay.
If you live in like Iran.
If you live in Iran. I mean, seriously, it doesn't make... Here's the microphone. It doesn't make any sense. You
Right.
can't have it both ways, Sinead O'Connor. You can't be the ultimate of a feminist and then become subject to men later on and be treated as less than a human and have less rights than a, you know, infant male that's born to a family. You know? I mean, this is insanity.
So a lot of
Still waiting on
Muslims
Jasper.
on Twitter are saying that it's a really great thing and they're really happy about it. So it's definitely an interesting dynamic we have going on here.
Our almost 15-year-old husky that's rickety and has incontinence issues and wears diapers still loves the cold fall weather. No, not again. Do we have to? Is that her? No, that's painful to me. It's like it hurts.
Yep.
Chris Holman said it's like fingernails on a chalkboard to him because he heard it so many times. When he was
Sinead
in
O'Connor,
Afghanistan.
who underwent intensive mental health treatment in the U.S. Last year with the help of Dr. Phil, has changed her name and became Muslim.
You know why she did it?
Because of
she
attention?
looks
Look at her.
No. She looks younger
Yeah.
without that shaved gray hair. Maybe she could just like grow her hair out and dye it, and then she could still look young. She doesn't have to cover it up. I think that's why she did it, because she looks younger with that on her than she did with the gray hair with her head shaved.
But now she gets to be somebody. Like she gets her 14 hours of fame again.
It's,
Right?
Yeah, no. It's if you're gonna resurge your career, strange, very strange.
Rain, well, you know, what you call it, try to do it, Lindsay Lohan. So I was going to see if there's any people on here with the European Court of Human Rights, see if people, I know that a lot of, Ayana Hirsi Ali said it was just absolutely wrong. Totally wrong. And Michelle was, it's, okay, here we go, ready?
I'm ready.
From The Guardian, was Jesus gay? Probably.
Oh my gosh.
Illegal.
hang on, no.
Illegal.
First of all, he is has an affair with Mary Magdalene. Like, that's what they want to say to start out with. And then when that's not enough, now they have to say that he's gay. What is it?
Right. And that's what Lauren Southern got banned from going into the UK for. Is she was saying, you know, something about Muhammad being gay or something like that,
Right.
to show that you could go around and say Jesus was gay,
Yeah.
but you can't say Muhammad was gay. And you can say everything about Jesus. You can say everything that you want to negative about Jesus. In Europe, Sharia, free speech bows to Sharia law.
Oh boy.
And they put people to death for blasphemy laws. Now, this woman was fined, but still, Europeans are free to say only what the courts let them. When he was 50, the Prophet of Islam took as his wife Aisha, who was then 6 or 7. The marriage was consummated when Aisha was 9. This is not a smear. This is an accurate account of an authoritative Islamic scripture. Yet, it can no longer safely be discussed in Europe, thanks to the extortionate threat of violence and intimidation, specifically of jihadist terrorism, and of the Islamist grievance industry that slipstreams behind it. Remember, there's a ton of child marriages, and they cite these hadiths.
Yeah.
They say, and then there's other hadiths that say, once a girl has puberty, then she's a woman, and blah, 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 and you can take her for a wife, and blah, 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 blah. Human rights. They're not so much. That word, you keep saying that word, human rights. The 2 words.
I mean,
I don't think it means what you think it means.
Since you brought that up, for those of you that may not understand, farmers, maybe there aren't enough Muslim farmers, okay? Because as a farmer, you understand that just because a calf, okay, gets old enough to...
Or a pig.
Or a pig. I was going to say pig, but then I thought it was contradictory. Dogs, cats, whatever animal you want to put in. Just because they can start reproducing doesn't mean that they should if they are a female. Now, I don't know that applies in the farm life for males because we've had that issue and whatever. But as far as bearing children, okay, it's unhealthy for the body. And that's where I say it's dehumanizing. Because just because a little girl goes through puberty does not mean that her body is ready and healthy enough to bear a child.
Or her mind.
Free
speech has been supplanted by Sharia blasphemy laws. The case involves this Austrian woman, we're going to talk about that, who in 2009 conducted 2 seminars entitled Basic Information on Islam. She included the account of Muhammad's marriage to Aisha. Though this account is scrupulously accurate, Mrs. S. was prosecuted on the rationale that her statements implied pedophilic tendencies. She didn't even say he was a pedophile.
Oh my gosh!
She just talked about it.
The world is insane!
$554 and was imposed for disparaging religion. She appealed, and the case went against her. Europeans are free to hold these opinions, but not really.
Gosh.
So, and we remember 4 years ago when Europe bowed to the mob and curbed its tongue following the jihadist massacre on the French satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo. I would call it a kind of a dirty, yucky magazine. I've seen some of its pictures. I wouldn't like it. But to ban it because of its speech, kind of weird, especially in a place of France, which is so open, so many crazy,
I know. Oh, no. They're not as
things.
open as they think they are. Amber Powell says it's a very dangerous precedence to set.
Very, very dangerous. All right, so let's get on to some interesting, more like happy news. The Czech Prime Minister compares Europe to Asterix besieged village, insists we have a right to defend our borders and heritage. So we can cover Poland, we cover Hungary, we've covered Austria standing up, and now it's time for the Czech Republic. We should have put them in the title so all the Czech people could come. Europeans have a right to defend our borders, our lifestyle, our heritage, and our culture, said the Czech Prime Minister. He said attacking divisive EU plans to foist mass third world migration on the bloc's eastern states. I don't know where Poland. Was it Poland? Now, I don't understand, honestly. A lot of these countries have presidents and prime ministers a bunch of prime ministers. Some have a bunch of, like, in Turkey, there's, like, a bunch of prime ministers. Like, Erdogan's, like, the top guy, like Merkel. But Merkel, like, Germany has a president you never hear about. Like, it's really weird.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't actually understand who all these crazy leaders are. Like, we have a president, a vice president. Pretty easy. President, vice president. Okay. Pretty simple. But, anyways, I was listening to somebody, I think it was Duda, but I'm not exactly sure. In Poland, who was being questioned on media suppression. And he said, well, I don't tell my media or the media in my country what to do and what to say. But I also, it would be front page news and we would tell everybody every detail as it came to our attention if a bunch of girls were violently raped and attacked. As an ode to the New Year's rapes in Cologne and in Germany and things like that, where the police downplayed what happened and basically tried to not get people to know what happened.
Right.
And it had to come out over a lot of time. So he's like, if a girls are going to be raped in my country, we're going to know
Everybody's
about
gonna
it.
know
We're going
about
to
it.
talk about it.
Yeah.
And it's going to be out in the mainstream media. So you want to talk to me about press freedom? You want to talk to me about that? That's a
good
joke.
point.
That's what they're saying. That's a joke.
Right.
It was a
Their press is so free that on their national evening news, they may randomly play resistance chicks. That's happened on Republica,
Yeah.
their television
I don't think
station.
that came from the top down.
No, I don't think that came from Duda, but you never know.
No, that was,
Beata
the other-
Shidwo
yeah,
in her
Shidwo.
speech.
Bieta, Shidwo.
And
it took me a long time.
we
to
covered
pronounce
it, and
Yeah.
it was on national news
Shidwo.
across their entire country. That's why, if you wonder why we have so many Polish people, we were in their newspaper, we were in a magazine.
That's pretty exciting.
It is pretty exciting. They just randomly grabbed. I don't know where they found us.
On Twitter.
Okay, well, whatever. It's great. So I'm just saying,
And on
that's how
YouTube.
uncensored.
We did a
We're
YouTube
censored
on
in the United States.
They played
They're
our
so
YouTube video on it.
uncensored
Yeah.
that they play us on their national nightly news.
I get exactly what you're saying. So, Andrei Babis made these comments while visiting a museum in Prague with globalist French leader Emmanuel Macron, who on Friday had declared Europe was not a supermarket as he kicked off a 2-day tour of the Czech Republic and Slovakia with demands that the patriotic Visegrad states fall into line regarding EU dictates on migrant solidarity and fundamental values. The Czech Republic has one of the lowest unemployment rates in Europe, said Babis in comments on Friday by the AFP. And all those who come here have a work permit. One must have the same system in Europe. I have always said it's like the Gaulish village of Asterix and Obelix. We have to defend Europe as at its natural frontiers. His reference to the legendary comic series, which features the adventures of this Gaulish village as they resist the Roman occupation in 50 BC, followed similar remarks by the Czech premier in an interview published. It says, I like comparing Europe to Asterix besieged village. We have the right to defend our borders, our lifestyle, our heritage, and our culture.
Wow.
Sections of the French press wondered if Asterix Adventures, which first appeared in 1959, had fallen victim to censorship in Europe's heated political climate. So I think that he's the way he's comparing his country to fending off, invasions. It's that's what they're feeling. The everyday hungry Poland will say, but we don't have terrorist attacks.
I know.
We don't have the crime you have.
Yeah.
So call me a bigot. Call me a racist. My people are safe.
Yeah.
We don't have migrant tents and camps and people pooping and peeing in the street. Okay?
Here's the deal, guys. When you have a people that by and large are dangerous and they support, even if not every person is dangerous, but they support, when we've had these terrorist attacks and you go to a Facebook Live and you see all the thumbs up and all the hearts and all the smiley faces from all of the Muslim people, okay? They support it.
Laughing.
All right? When you have that, if everybody were to shut their borders and say no, I'm sorry, we're going to put our country first. Enough is enough. Our people are going to be safe. Our people are not going to be raped. We're not going to have no-go zones. We're not going to support you. You must stay in the Middle East, fight amongst yourselves, figure it out amongst yourselves.
Or Africa.
Or Africa. If everybody did that, there's nothing wrong with every nation trying to protect their people. And then every nation can choose. There is no worldwide obligation. They may choose to take refugees from these Middle Eastern countries. But like I always say on the show, and it bears repeating, the refugees that we would be taking from Middle Eastern countries or from Africa are going to be the persecuted Christians because they are the minorities. If we are taking any refugees from these countries, they ought to be persecuted Christians. And there are so many of them that would be all we would be able to take.
Yeah, or maybe Muslims who are facing persecution because they're going against their government, like in Saudi Arabia or something like that, or in Iran. Muslims who don't subscribe to their government's hard line of thinking, and they need political asylum. Maybe they've spoken out like the women who go without their hijab and they're going to be thrown in jail, and then you apply for asylum. So these are the people that we should be allowing in. So you allow in the Muslims who say, I want to live according to Western principles of freedom of speech, Declaration of Independence,
but they
the
also
Constitution.
have to be suffering some sort of persecution.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
If you're being persecuted for your thoughts.
Well, I've been going through the chat, and I want to remind the people, they know what I'm talking about. I don't need to tell everybody what it's about. That last year when we started it, we said, they were talking about Civil War and all this other stuff. No. There's just a few leaders. You just have to take out, like, the leaders of any type of a group, whatever that group might be, because nobody can do anything if there are no leaders. We were just talking to somebody today whose dad owns his own business. And these workers don't know what to do if they don't have somebody telling them what to do. Right. Whether it's Islam, whether it's in Sweden, whatever. Nobody knows what to do because they went to public school and you're taught to have leaders.
Right.
Very few people are their own business owners. That's why Tommy Robertson is so bold, because he's a businessman. He can do things for himself.
Right.
You take away this fake money, you take away the fake leaders who are just globalists hoarding all these paper fake money. Mm-hmm. You take the big guys out.
Yep.
All the Muslims, if they have to farm, they're going to go back home.
Yeah.
And all the Germans will go back to their land.
Right.
All the Austrians go back to their land. All the people in England go back to their land. And the Swedes go back. You go back to farming.
Right.
And if the people who are foreigners in your country, if they have to farm, they're just going to give up and go home. And all these social programs is what keeps it going.
Yeah.
You get rid of the fake dollars, there's no more social programs.
Exactly.
And you get rid of the fake leaders who are making the fake dollars, and you don't have any problems anymore. I mean, it's just the way it is.
Simple.
It's so simple. The Muslims, like, they don't have leaders. Take out all their leaders or whatever. Or you take out all the EU leaders. And people don't have leaders anymore. They don't know what to do. And if there's no money flowing, it's paper, then there's nothing in the grocery store. You're going to have to go out and farm. And the Muslim's going to say, I'm going home. Bye. Because they're not getting free stuff anymore.
Right. Erin Great on Facebook Live, back to the hadiths that you had mentioned earlier. She says the hadiths also tell Muslims that they cannot stay on lands that do not belong to them. Why are these people in Europe?
That's a good question. Well, but here's the thing. Muhammad went and took lands that didn't belong to him. It's a right of conquest. So they think that they're conquistadors.
Yeah. I think it's conquistador.
I know.
Okay.
3/4 of Kali migrants are mentally ill. Now, what's funny, it's not funny, about this report, it's made by
It sounds racist.
activist health professionals have sounded the alarm over the situation in Kali, where doctors of the world claim 3/4 of the 500 migrants living in the hope of breaking into Britain are suffering from mental illness. However, and I was like going with you, I'm like, but they said it's caused by their breakdown of their family at home and their situation at home. But when they get here, it's exasperated by people who don't believe them and question them harshly when they can't explain, their circumstances or how they got there. And so their answer is to immediately set up permanent residence for these people, give them food and clothing and shelter and medical care and treat and if you hear that and you're living in Africa and you say, listen, they're going to give you all the food you need, they're going to give you health care, they're going to give you a bed, they're going to take care of you, there's more people going to come.
Everybody, it's called the American dream for a reason. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to go to a westernized nation, from a, second or third world country.
What is happening in a lot of these African countries is awful, okay?
Yeah.
It's awful. And listen, Africa's a big continent, so we can't just say Africa, because some African countries are thriving. They're doing fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay? And some of them, like in Zimbabwe, who had, they had the Boers come down, I believe, and I think it was the Boers too, white farmers who made Zimbabwe and South Africa the bread baskets of Africa. Then the communists came in, these anti-white communists, destroyed everything. And now what do you do? Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's a lot of there's American wars in there. There's globalist wars in there. There's a lot of bad things happening. So why don't we make Africa great again? I'm all about it. That's what I want to tell people. Make Italy great again. If you as an Italian say I want to go to America, okay, fine. Let's see if we can make that happen. You know, make Mexico great again. We were just having this conversation with a friend of ours. A lot of Mexicans are coming up here because of the NAFTA trade deal. We flooded their market with cheap corn, and we put these micro farmers who were in great communities, and they were masters of their castle, kings of their castle, and
Right.
they hired people in, and they had work, and then the cheap corn comes in and destroys their whole livelihood. So they have to leave their family, they have to leave their farms and goats and chickens, and come here to America and put roofs on our roof, and send money back home. They don't want to be putting. People think that they do. People think that all migrants just want to be in that country that they're going. Okay, but and there's a different. This is totally different though with the Mexican migrants in America and these migrants, because they're not coming to work. They're not. These migrants aren't putting on roofs for cheap. They're not skilled laborers.
They're not working for 12 hours a day for a very small amount of money.
I know, it's absolutely crazy. But yeah, it's a definitely migrants smash window, hit women inside with sticks. I could spend the entire, and I don't like to do it, but I could spend the entire episode on migrant crime, violence, and rapes in Europe alone.
Okay, so I want to pause right here. If you're just joining us because the UK had a time change yesterday, and you're an hour late for the show, all y'all UK people dropped the ball and didn't tell me. Last year they told me. Or earlier this year, the first time we had the time change, they told me. I didn't know that this was happening today.
Oh, no.
So if you're just joining us, I'm sorry you missed the first hour of the show.
You have to rewind.
You'll have to rewind and watch it later.
Okay, this is Rouhani from Iran hails the EU siding with Iran against America as a historic victory. President Hassan Rouhani has said Saturday that the divisions between the U.S. and Europe over renewed sanctions on Iran were a rare historical victory for the Islamic Republic. You know what? I never want to be on the side of somebody who says this is a rare historical victory for the Islamic Republic.
Right.
If that's a victory and I'm on your side, I got to re-question my motivations. And I don't believe in regime change happening. I don't want U.S. regime change we've seen what's happened in Libya. We know what happens when the CIA tried to go in and overthrow. We funded, the people in Syria. I've learned my lesson. Okay, we don't want to overthrow Iran.
Right.
Okay. However,
but we don't need to be working with them. We don't need to be funding them. We don't need to be, seriously.
He says, if this time last year we had stated that America would stand against the great nation of Iran, and Europe would stand with Iran against America, the overwhelming majority of us would have said that this was pure optimism. The political victory of the great nation of Iran over the past months is a rare victory of history. EU countries have fiercely opposed the decision of U.S. President Donald Trump to abandon their landmark 2015 nuclear deal with Iran and reimpose sanctions, the last of which will return on November 5th. Rouhani was addressing Parliament for a special session to approve 4 new ministers. He acknowledged Iranians are feeling the economic strain, saying all of us understand people are suffering and under pressure. I'm not a big fan of sanctions, really. I could take them or leave them. I mostly leave them because it really does hurt the people. And I wish that sanctions could really put pressure on the government. But I do see a resurgence of freedom in Iran. And when I go through my Twitter feed, I see a lot of My Stealthy Freedom. Men are standing up for women in a way that makes my heart sing. With the, our women shouldn't have to wear hijab. I mean, they're literally street fights.
Yeah.
Between men.
And women.
But I mean...
I've seen the cat fights, though.
What I mean is between the men.
Oh, okay.
Because they're the ones, honestly, that it's the men they're going to have to change the laws.
Right. No, I'm thinking about the women that take their hijabs off, and then all those women's, I know plural. Women in their burqas come, and they're like literally catfighting them, and it's terrible. We've shown that on the show.
Yeah, I don't know. I had some tweets up. I wish I could see. There's freedom that's happening in Iran, and I'm pretty...
Look that up. In the meantime, I do have to go back to the clocks. Ours go back next weekend, so don't go switching. Mm-hmm. Next week, we'll be back in sync. Mm-hmm. So that's this for today. This is a one-off thing where we're separate.
One-off thing. So, anyways, there's a movement happening in Iran. It's pretty cool to watch, and I hope it's like not some violent revolution.
Right.
And I don't want to be a part of any violent revolution, but seeing the EU side with Iran against the United States, that's never a good thing. Like, you know, you can have lesser of two evils. That's a worse evil. This is kind of interesting news. The French Khalid leader blasts the UK government for Project Fear. So the UK government has told everybody that, oh my gosh, we can't have Brexit because we won't be able to get goods in through the French border in Calais.
Right.
And
They've been using every fear-mongering tactic that they could. STDs are going to go through the
French
roof.
officials have slapped down British claims that France will frustrate and slow trade passing through Calais in the event of a no-deal Brexit. Dominic Raab, the UK's Brexit secretary, claimed Thursday there would be a major disruption in a worst-case scenario, forcing trade to shift to other ports. He said the UK needed to prepare for the worst-case scenario, where the authorities at Calais are deliberately directing a go-slow approach by supporting a diversion of the flow of more amenable ports to other countries. But the president of the Calais Hauts-de-France region, Javier Bertrand, dismissed Mr. Raab's claim, saying France would ensure the fluidity of trade after Brexit. You guys, everything's going to be fine. Literally says that. Who on earth could think of a go-slow approach would be good for business? He blasted, insisting that the region and Calais is working on new systems to increase fluidity at both ports and the tunnel. Posting a link to Mr. Raab's comments, he added, "No, closing the port or tunnel at Calais for the British in the event of Brexit no agreement is not envisaged. Who can believe such a thing? We have to do everything we can to ensure the fluidity of trade." Another official said closing Calais would be an economic suicide mission. So this isn't more fear-mongering on the part of the UK government. The UK government saying this is going to be bad, this is going to be bad. And everybody around is saying it's not going to be bad. It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine.
Sometimes we leave Jasper outside.
Oh,
so I have to go check on her. Sometimes
so,
she's in Uncle Jasper.
So Sadiq Khan is actually meeting, I'm going to see if I can bring this up, is meeting with some European officials to try to undermine Brexit.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not spelling it right.
Yep, that's it. Is your stomach gurgling?
It is making
hungry.
big noises.
You know why my stomach's not hungry? Because Leah made biscuits and gravy for breakfast, and I ate it, and you didn't.
He says, Mayor of London, I know Londoners are concerned about the impact of Brexit on our city. I'm in Brussels today urging the EU decision makers to start preparing to extend Article 50. Sadiq urges the EU to put the brakes on Brexit at crunch talks in Brussels. So he went to Brussels.
No.
And it was like, you guys, we got to stop this.
He's a mayor. You understand he's a mayor, right? You know he's a mayor. Do y'all understand how Parliament works? You don't get to be there. So, I mean, not only are you not an MEP, you're not an MP, you're a mayor.
As he's talking in Brussels with Michael Barnier.
You know, he acts like he's prime minister. You know that?
Oh, every day. Every day that man acts like prime minister.
You know, he went for the wrong thing.
Nigel,
if he wanted to be prime minister, he should have gone for parliament. You went for mayor, man. Mayor.
Yeah, Nigel Farage says British politicians are colluding with Barnier against the will of the people, and it is disgraceful.
There goes your stomach again.
I'm sorry.
Now, hang on. Britt Baza says Michelle Calais is pronounced Calais.
Calais. I've heard it.
We say, I've always heard Calais.
Mm-hmm.
Potato, man.
Potato. Let's call the whole thing off. Nigel Farage had a new speech. Watch my whole speech. Here we go.
I don't have it on mine.
You want to bring it up?
I don't know.
Look at Nigel. Go to Nigel's Twitter feed, and we will watch him. I like that better on there for more people to see it.
Okay.
It's a few down, like 5 or 6 down.
Okay.
So Nigel has, he had another speech in Parliament, which we always love to bring to you. Yes, Nigel Farage. And then after that, we are going to talk about Tommy Robinson.
Awesome.
It was this week since it's I think it's like, oh my gosh, it's been a whole week since we saw you guys.
So which one is it? This one?
No, go down. It's a whole one. Keep going. Keep going. One more. There it is. Right
Can
there.
we pause right here before we do Nigel? There goes your stomach again.
I know.
I would like to take this moment, speaking of Nigel, because Horatio came to us via Nigel,
Yeah.
and sing a happy birthday. Because today is Horatio's birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Horatio.
He hates it when we sing.
Happy birthday to you. I might have said his name.
So, happy birthday, Horatio McShetty. I told him earlier this week, I said, since your birthday is on a Sunday, what a greater way to celebrate your birthday than to be on the show. And I got crickets. Crickets from that. But happy birthday to you, my friend. We love you. And we're going to have you back on the show, coming, kicking and screaming. You all, Horatio loves you. He loves you so much. He can't wait to be on the show.
I just like to listen to him talk, but he's really smart and he knows what he's talking about.
Right. This might even be playing. I hope it's not. Okay, it's muted. All right, so now we're going to go. There goes the stomach again. Go eat something. I can't. I'm distracted by the sound that your stomach is making.
It's making, some.
All right, here we go. Let's rewind.
Start at the beginning.
Yeah.
Make it big.
Make it big.
I'll be back.
Un po' della libertà della democrazia diretta, la parola onorevole Farage. I think under Rule 164 of our revered procedures, I am allowed to respond to the comments you made as President of the Parliament, some of them personally insulting. Maybe you have a bit of a problem with your temper. I will ignore the personal comments you've made about me, but I will say this. We do seem this morning to be struggling just a little bit with our history. To claim, Mr. Tajani, that the European Union brought about the downfall of Nazism and Soviet communism isn't only laughable, it is very ungracious and deeply insulting to the United States of America, who made massive sacrifices so that Europe could be free twice in the 20th century, and to a slightly lesser extent, the United Kingdom, as 30,000 British dead in Italy will attest. So, you can claim what you want for the European Union, but please do not rewrite history. Mr. Tusk, I want to thank you for confirming that it was Theresa May that asked for the one-year extension to the transition period. I also want to thank you for your recent offer, saying that if Britain wants a Canada Plus style trade deal, you are open to it. Indeed, it's what I've campaigned for 25 years. I've always thought this was a better approach between our country and the EU than the one we currently have. Now, every proposal, of course, seems to founder on this question of the Irish border, but given the slight state of panic that German industry is now getting itself into, and maybe that's not surprising, because a WTO deal would lead to not just tariffs on German cars, but a weaker pound and probably a more competitive UK economy. So the time has come to look for answers. And the funny thing is, the answers are staring at us. Mr. Juncker, in the Irish Parliament not so long ago, made it very clear there were no circumstances under which the European Union would impose a border. Indeed, Mr. Varadkar, the Irish PM, not usually particularly helpful in the Brexit process, but even he has said, under no circumstances will there be a hard border. This Parliament produced this study, one of your own committees, the AFCO committee, avoiding a hard border on the island of Ireland for customs control and the free movement of persons. The point is, there are solutions everywhere we look. The idea that somehow this border is an impediment, frankly, is a red herring. The problem, I'm afraid, is that there is a rogue element in these negotiations, a group of people who do not wish to see a solution, who put up an immovable brick wall to stop us from breaking free. And I regret to say, actually, it isn't your chief negotiator, Monsieur Barnier, it is actually the British Civil Service, Ollie Robbins' team. They signed up years ago to the European dream. They've been happy to take their orders from Brussels. They are now out to sabotage Brexit. They are indeed the enemy within. And I think that unless the Conservative Party comes to its senses and gets rid of a leader who clearly is being led by the nose, then we will head to the December summit, we'll head towards a humiliating sellout, and we'll head towards the United Kingdom being trapped in EU rules for many, many years to come.
Wow. Thank you, Maia Farage.
Onorevole Farage, le ricordo che il comunismo e l'Unione Sovietica.
Okay.
I love the way he says Nigel Farage.
Farage.
It's my favorite thing he says.
I know.
It's like some sort of Cars character. Nigel Farage.
That's exactly what it sounds like.
All right, Tommy.
Yay! Oh, so we could keep the earbuds in. Are we going to go to the Soldier X thing?
Yeah, let's go to that first. You guys recall that Tommy was just at a petrol station. And I don't know, petrol, gas station.
I know, that's really funny that you just rolled right off your tongue.
We
call them a gas station.
And he ran into some soldiers, and they took some selfies with him. Well, the government promised that there would be some repercussions, and one young man was kicked out of the armed services.
Unbelievable!
And I want you to see what has happened as a result.
All right. Oh wait, I just made. Hang on. Wait a minute. Let's do that. No.
Some people might think that Tommy is a bit much. Well, what they're doing to him and what they've done is way much more.
Well said.
So 7 days ago, I pulled in at Motorway Services. I had my photo taken with some soldier recruits. Because of that, there was a big uproar, and the Muslim Council of Britain, an extremist organisation, put pressure on the army to do something about it. They decided to discharge one of those young men, a 17-year-old lad who we've called Soldier X. After that, I started receiving so much contact and so much support for this soldier. We started a campaign, #IamSoldierX. For the last week, I've travelled this country, meeting with soldiers at their army barracks and hearing their stories of why they're frustrated. People have also sent in their pictures and their symbols to show where they stand on this issue. There's been an outpouring of support. Nearly 200,000 people have signed a petition. Now I've decided to black out all of these soldiers' faces and identities. But many of them didn't want me to. So I could have showed them. And then the army are in a predicament. What are they going to do about it? They need to do the right thing here. The public have showed where they feel. Our own armed forces have showed where they feel. They need to not discharge this young boy. He's still in an army barracks now. I found that out yesterday. He's still based on camp now. So make the right decision. So what this has done, it started off over this one individual. And now Pandora's box is open. And people are contacting me from across the world who are serving for our country with their problems. And the establishment will be thinking now, how do they close that box? And the truth is, you can't. You won't be able to. At some point, you're going to have to address and deal with these issues. I've had some young soldiers tell me how they're expected to fight and die and give their life and sacrifice their life for other people's free speech and other people's freedoms. But yet they're having it taken away from them here in Britain.
If I want to follow, if that is my belief, then that is my belief. That is something I should be allowed to share on my own social media. It's not something that other people should be able to dictate what I post. I feel like that's a sort of oppression that shouldn't be forced upon people that are meant to fight that exact thing. Do you know what I mean? I feel like
so many people say you're fighting for other people's freedoms in faraway fields. You're fighting.
But we're not allowed our own. Yeah, I understand what I mean. It's like we go out, say for example, if they want to send us wherever we go in the world, it's usually for that cause to fight oppression, and then we're sitting here. I'm not allowed to tell you that you're my idol or whatever. You know, whatever political views. I'm not allowed to be right wing, left wing. I have to be centrist. But that's irrelevant.
When I caught up with a lad who's friends with Soldier X, a lad who served in his training with him as well, I found out that Sky News once again had lied. We all saw straight away the government narrative on this situation, where they put out a news article on Sky News from an army source, which says that this boy has a long history of disciplinary problems, making out that this was the final straw. I've seen lots of people comment on it. Well, he already had lots of bad things he'd done. We find out when we speak to one of his friends, that's a lie. Not only are they happy to destroy the man's career, but they also want to destroy his name and reputation. You know, lad who's been discharged.
I do, yeah.
What's his? Do you know anything about his previous disciplinary?
He hasn't had no disciplinary actions at all. In phase one, he was fucking spot on. He was good as gold. He didn't have one bad thing against his name.
So how? Because I knew as soon as I saw the narrative the media were trying to spin straight away, this is a long list of disciplinary issues.
No? It's not true, no. It's the army flapping and trying to turn it on him. just to try and get themselves in the right. But at the end of the day, he's a good lad. Nothing's happened to him.
I've become worried this week. The more I found out about our armed services, the level of morale, the conditions, the food. This started off with an attack on their free speech, an attack on their freedom of their own thought, of who they're allowed to follow and speak about. I've had one group of soldiers tell me this week that if they mention my name, then they get disciplinary. If they mention my name. Insanity in our armed services. And this all comes from the push for diversity and inclusion. I've heard stories how between 40 men there's one toilet, one working toilet between 40 men. Think about that. One working toilet between 40 men. 3 working showers between 60 men. The food. I just presumed and I thought that our armed forces would have the best of everything. Especially the food. As one young gentleman told us, one young soldier told us, they say an army marches on its stomach. Fed and prepared and ready. The amount of fitness and training they must be doing. And then the slop and the disgusting food they're getting given. I'm all shocked as I'm looking through it all. I think all these issues have become part of I Am Soldier X. I haven't even touched on post-traumatic stress disorder yet. I don't think I can do this justice, any of it justice, in these short videos. But I just thought I'd put a combination of it together to show you the massive support the Soldier X campaign has gained. And I'll be taking this back up if and when I'm released from court or out of prison.
So speaking of being out of prison, the judge decided this week when Tommy went in, he thought he might go in and stay there. He might die in prison. He had to prepare himself for everything. And he came out.
Yeah.
Now, the judge gave it over to the attorney general and said, from what I understand, and or prosecute. I don't know exactly how their law system works, but basically somebody from the government has to decide whether they want to be the prosecutor in this case.
Okay.
Because the way the judge said it was, I'm going to have to be both prosecutor and judge and jury, and this case is too complicated for that. It's not like a speeding ticket. And so for Tommy, this is a very good thing because it puts him out on the streets to tell his story even more. So they at the Old Bailey, they had a big rally.
And this was, hang on, before you play that, this was immediately following his where he had a chance to read his speech. But before we get to that, Chris Holman had said in the U.S., soldiers are not permitted to campaign or participate in politics or protests while in uniform. Mm-hmm. And, I actually do understand that side of it, because when you choose to be in the military and you put on that uniform, you're there to represent the United States of America.
Right.
And so to be a political protester while in uniform, I can understand.
But can you take a picture with a celebrity?
That's where my thinking went.
Can you take a picture with a singer?
Right.
A lot of these singers are becoming political.
Just having your picture taken with Tommy Robinson does not make you a participant in any kind of political protest. Or he's a person. He's just a person. You know what I mean? He's not a known terrorist, right? You know what I'm saying?
So, like Madonna said, I've thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House. Can they take a picture with Madonna?
Yeah, good question. We've got Jeremy Corbyn, who is, in my opinion, an actual terrorist. He's committed terrorist acts. He's been a part of.
Madonna said, I've thought an awful lot about.
I believe, in my humble opinion, his past protesting in his youth
okay.
we've got Jeremy Corbyn, a little bit, who is, in my opinion, an actual terrorist. And he's committed that's my opinion. I'm just saying that's my opinion, right? So somebody can have that opinion about a Tommy Robinson. I believe, but I'm going to guess that the soldiers protest Jeremy Corbyn.
Well,
you think they would? I think they would be allowed to have a picture taken with Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah.
That's the point that I'm trying to make. They can have their picture taken with Jeremy Corbyn, and he is a politically controversial. But I'm going to guess that the soldiers. So I'm just saying this is completely biased. I think they would be allowed to have a picture taken with Jeremy Corbyn. That was the point that I'm trying to make. They can have their picture taken with Jeremy Corbyn, and he is a politically. So I'm just saying this is completely biased. Got it, Mom. I know, I got it. I want to explain some tech stuff to you guys so you can help me. All right, so y'all know what happens. You're like, I'm hearing an echo, I'm hearing an echo. When we're going live, I have screens up. I have lots of different screens up. I have Facebook Live going so that I can switch back and forth and I can see the comments. I can't see the real live comments unless the video is playing in the background, which means I have to mute it. For some reason, when I switched back from the scene, it just automatically unmuted on its own a Facebook thing. So you don't need to go into panic, but you can say, Michelle, the Facebook Live is playing, and then I can go in and I can mute it. But you don't have to have a panic attack. Everybody kind of goes into panic mode, and there you go. So now you know what's happening when it happens. They look so happy. And they, of course, they have every reason to be happy because Tommy Robinson didn't go to jail.
So, the Rebel brought over some reporters from the America. They brought over Cassandra Fairbanks from the Gateway Pundit, who I follow all the time, and this Canadian journalist to cover Tommy's story unbiasedly. Now, I want you to hear what this Canadian reporter has to say.
My name is Andrew Lawton. I am from London, Ontario, in Canada. So I was in the courtroom in the front row waiting to cover Tommy Robinson. The mainstream media did not know who I was, being the undocumented foreigner in this land. And they were speaking a little candidly. Would you like to hear what they said? So where's Ezra, my personal favorite, and by the way, this will be quoted on my website later today with their publication name. My personal favorite was about our friend Ezra Levant. Quote, he needs to be arrested. Was what they said. Before the proceeding even started, this is what they said about Tommy. Quote, he is in contempt of court, there's not really any doubt. And there was one more. You see, one of the great members of the law enforcement who have done a lot of great work today said to them, at the time there were about 1,500 people. They said, let's just say a few hundred, quote, because we don't want to give it credit.
Fake news.
This is why I got on a plane to come here to cover the facts. That's why I'm here. Thank you.
Fake news.
Amazing.
Fake
For anybody in the United States questioning whether there's media bias around the world, don't. It's everywhere, and it's all funded by George Soros.
Yeah, I'm going to play some more pieces here.
And tell me to carry on going. If you told them that you work for the BBC, you'd get a completely different response to what I get. You wish to try and portray that I am hated, whereas in reality, it's you that are hated. You have lied. You have played your part, and all of you who call yourself journalists, you all knew what was happening to those girls in all of those towns and cities, and you've done nothing. You said nothing.
It's true. They only want to cover it with sensation.
And now, none of you have reported the fact that 3 other journalists, the same weekend that I was imprisoned, 3 journalists, and I've got the court transcripts for this trial, 3 national journalists broke the same reporting restriction that I was imprisoned for the same weekend. You all know they did, and none of you have reported that. None of you have identified that I am being tried because of who I am, not what I've done.
Berthelick says, go ahead, Tommy, let him have it.
I like what he says there. I'm being tried because of who I am and not because of what I've done.
Amazing. Yeah.
I want to show you some more clips here. This was like, somebody was playing this. I cried when up clips of that. I got goosebumps all over my whole body. Cassandra Fairbanks puts them up. They played Hallelujah with Tommy up there, and it was like a praise and worship to the Lord. It was just pretty powerful. So with that, I think that's kind of all that we have today. Here is his full speech. I know Janice Atkins has become prominent now. I kind of know she's a MEP in the European Parliament. She's a great warrior for truth. I love her. She's doing great things. This is a video that Tommy put up asking why Corbyn invited Hamas and Hezbollah to Parliament.
Talk about foreign affairs. Why did you call Hamas and Hezbollah your friends?
What I did was spoke at a meeting in which I said I wanted all people involved in the Middle East issue to come together and be able to have a discussion, to be able to discuss. Can you allow me to finish? Do you mind?
Yeah, but I asked you a question and you're ignoring it.
No, I'm not ignoring the question. If you'd give me a minute, I'll answer it. The point is this. Listen for a minute, if you don't mind. I spoke at a meeting about the Middle East crisis in Parliament.
Okay.
And there were people there from Hezbollah, and I said I welcomed our friends from Hezbollah to have a discussion and a debate. And I said I wanted Hamas to be part of that debate. I have met Hamas in Lebanon, and I've met Hezbollah in this country in Lebanon. I've also met...
So are they friends or not?
Can I finish?
Are they friends or not?
Can I finish? I've also met...
You can't if it's a long answer.
Look, the issue is this. You are not prepared to discuss the whole issue of the Middle East. You're not prepared to discuss the wider question.
You can just tell, like, listen, I'm really good at reading people. You can tell the type of person that he is. Like, he lives at the, like, I wouldn't want to be married to that man. I wouldn't want to be friends with that man. I wouldn't want him to be my boss, because you do something at the drop of the hat, he's going to jump on you, because that's his immediate answer. And that's what you do when you don't have facts. You just get loud and you get tense and you get big.
So I'm going to end with some of this. This is Ezra talking to Lord Pearson, and because he is a lord in the House of Lords.
We watched this the other day, right?
We watched it in the kitchen. He gets to say things that the rest of you commoners might be fined for, imprisoned for.
Yes.
But I think I'm grateful that he does speak out. He seems like a good chap.
A peer, you're a member of the House of Lords, and yet you are friends with someone that some would say is on the opposite end of the spectrum from you in many walks of life. I'm talking about Tommy Robinson. How did that unlikely friendship come about?
Well, I can't remember. I remember now how Tommy and I met. I was asking one of my questions in the Lords, really trying to talk about Islam, and I was trying to ask publicly whether to talk about Islam, to try and understand Islam, the tenets of Islam and all that, constituted hate speech. And Tommy heard about this, and so he decided to come and listen. And he was supposed to go into the public gallery, as I understood it, but of course he met up with some of my friends, and before we knew where we were, he was in the Distinguished Visitors Gallery, in the front row, in front of the Liberal Democrat Party, who all got extremely jumpy about the whole thing. And then I had such a rough ride in that particular question, which I think has gone on YouTube and that sort of thing, that when Tommy came to me and said, I'd like to interview, I said, yes, Tommy, come on, let's do an interview. So we went and did an interview together, which isn't very good, but it's got some good parts in it. And I met him, and I met a most remarkable man. I met someone who's not at all what the mainstream media and the idiotic political establishment and everything would have you believe. I met the man of his speech to the Oxford Union. I've read his autobiography, Enemy of the State. And I've also, it's such a work of Muslim Islamic scholarship that I couldn't possibly read it, but I have looked at his book, which he co-authored with Peter McLaughlin.
Muhammad's Quran.
Muhammad's Quran, which is a terribly important book because it attempts to put the Quran into chronological order. And if you can't understand the basic and terrifying Muslim tenet of abrogation, whereby the later verses of the Quran outweigh and cancel the later violent verses of the sword, the verses post-Medina, cancel the earlier verses of peace. If you don't understand that, you can't really begin to understand Islam. So it's a hugely important book.
Well,
so I met a most exceptional man, and I don't give a damn where he comes from, and he doesn't give a damn where I come from. And we made friends, and it's as simple as that.
Your observations about Tommy, I share them and other people share them, but typically I find in the United Kingdom especially, in politics, in the media, in polite company, people may think those thoughts, but if they dare say them out loud, they're marginalized and deep unpersoned. Is it only because you have the unshakable seat in the House of Lords that you can say these things with impunity?
Oh, yes, I think some of the things I've said in the Lords, which I say under privilege, parliamentary privilege, I can't actually be arrested for what I say in the Lords. But when, for instance, the other day I made the simplest of comments, I said, and the House was full, and I just said, my Lords, since nowadays most terrorists are Islamists, and the place erupted.
But that's incontrovertible. That's a mathematical question.
You'd have thought, but also saying, pointing out that our grooming gang scandal in this country, which is a colossal scandal. I mean, yesterday I challenged the government with the fact that if you extrapolate the towns and areas where we have official and semi-official figures, if you extrapolate those figures nationally, we're looking at 250,000 girls, minimum, raped this century. We're looking at between 5 and 8 million rapes by Muslim men.
One is unacceptable.
Of these girls. And some would say, I don't know enough about it, they're sanctioned in the Quran by what your right hand possesses. And so on. I don't know whether it is or not, but I want to talk about it. I don't want to go on being told that I can't talk about it. And as you say, as soon as you mention it in polite society or anywhere talking to normal people, they just switch off. They assume, but this is a great conundrum, they assume that because most of the Muslims we know, and we all know lots of them, they're peaceful people, praying, giving alms, and so because they are peaceful, so must the Muslim religion be peaceful. And it isn't necessarily the same thing.
Can you pause that really quick?
There's a
I've never heard anybody say that way. Just because you have peaceful Muslims that live peacefully in the world, around the world, does not mean that the religion of Islam is a peaceful religion. That is absolutely 100% correct.
Yeah.
Hang on, pause a minute. Because if they were to say all Muslims are peaceful, we never see anything come out of Muslims, they never commit anything, then you could say, really, I think then you could say, you know what, that's written in the book, but the religion that they're practicing must be peaceful because they never have, you know what I'm saying? You could make that stretch. Despite what's in the Quran, you could do that. But
that's not what he's talking about. He's talking about what's in the Quran.
Exactly. Well, no, but I think you have to take it both together. We see, he said in the House of Lords that almost all terrorist acts are committed by Muslims. It's an irrefutable fact. So we know that these people are taking the non-peaceful religion that's written in the Quran and they are implementing it. So there isn't any way that they can say Islam is peaceful, even in spite of what's written in the Quran.
Of course, the philosophy of religion, criticizing an individual Muslim. Of course. I think some people are afraid that if you criticize the doctrine, you're necessarily condemning individual
that's what they
people.
Say. They always say to me, they say, come on, you're, condemning millions of innocent people. I mean, I do say, en passant there, that only 8% of the tip-offs to our police and various programs we've got against Islam, only 8% come within our very close-knit Muslim communities. So one does slightly say, if only 1% of these people are the violent sort, what the hell are the other 99% doing about it? One could ask for more of that. But I have never criticized, I've got Muslim friends, and we don't, and Tommy doesn't, and Gerard doesn't, and other people. I don't criticise Muslims as such. I want to know about their religion, and I want to know where it may lead when, for instance, in 15 years, a dozen or so of our local authorities in this country are going to be Muslim majority, because the Muslim birth rate, and I have government answers to show this, the Muslim birth rate is going up at about 10 times the national birth rate, the non-Muslim birth rate. Now that's quite worrying, because when they become a majority, and all Muslims have a duty to live under Sharia law, they have to follow the Quran and the doings and sayings of the Prophet, what's going to happen? I don't know. But I think it's better we start talking about it now.
Well, that's how Islam...
Better we start talking about it now.
I absolutely loved that interview when we watched it the other day. It's worth watching twice.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, so we're going to round off our show for today.
Yeah.
Our clock is dinging 3 o'clock.
She waited in her bed.
We put Jasper in her bed.
Song? Do you have a song?
Yeah. Do you want to just sing Nothing But... It was playing earlier. The one they all love. I have
Seen what man can do when the evil lives inside of you. Many are the weak and the strong are few, but with the water we'll start anew. Won't you take me down to the levee? Take me down to the stream. Take me down to the water. We're gonna wash our souls clean. Take me down to the river. Take me down to the lake. Yes, we'll all go together. We're gonna do it for the good Lord's sake. I have fallen so many times for the devil's sweet cunning rhymes. And this old world has brought me pain, but there's hope for me again. Well, won't you take me down to the levee? Take me down to the stream. Take me down to the water. We're gonna wash our souls clean. Take me down to the river. Take me down to the lake. Yes, we'll all go together. We're gonna do it for the good Lord's sake. Tried my hand at the Bible. Tried my hand at prayer. But now nothing but the water is gonna bring my soul to bed. All right, do you have anything else? Dude, I came up with that one. I win. I got the easy one. Yeah.
You got a better one? You got something else?
Better.
I got a ukulele.
You do.
Oh, remember how I said I was going to learn a song and play it by today? Yeah, no.
I told you.
Hey, look at what Lee's around now. We played kickball yesterday. Kickball. We went to a friend's harvest party. We were gone all day long. And we have friends, young friends, that love to do fun things like square dance. So we did a lot of that. But that didn't get me as much as the kickball thing.
I think because we didn't put it all into the square dance.
But I put my all into that kickball, man. I am so sore. I had to lift my leg to put it in my pants today. I'm like an old person. Oh my gosh, it's ridiculous. I'm so sore. Every time I do anything in here, I'm trying to hide the fact that every part of my body feels like it's been in a car wreck right now. All right, what do you got? So I didn't have time to play the ukulele because we came home late and yeah, it was a fun day.
What can wash away my sins? Nothing but the blood of Jesus. And what can make me whole
nothing but the blood of Jesus. Oh, precious is the flow that makes me white as snow. No other fount I know, nothing but the blood of Jesus. And for my cleansing this I see, nothing but the blood of Jesus. And for my pardon this I plead, nothing but the blood of Jesus. Oh, precious is the flow that makes me white as snow. No other fount I know, nothing but the blood of Jesus. Nothing can my sin erase, nothing but the blood of Jesus. And not of works till all of grace, nothing but the blood of Jesus. Oh, precious is the flow that makes me white as snow. No other fount I know, nothing but the blood of Jesus. And this is all my hope and peace, nothing but the blood of Jesus. And this is all my righteousness, nothing but the blood of Jesus. Oh, precious is the flow that makes me white as snow. No other fount I know, nothing but the blood of Jesus. Nothing but the blood of Jesus. There you go. That's good. All right. Happy birthday, Horatio. I don't think he stayed after the singing. But thank you to all the moderators who were here today. I feel like I'm missing something.
I feel
here.
like you should.
Oh.
I feel like you should have read some more comments today.
I should read more comments.
I feel like you should. Not on the singing, but on Tommy.
Britt Bozza says that he wants me to play the song that he sent in Messenger. I would like to listen to it first, and then possibly this week. We like to cover, I trust you. I do, but I want to listen to it first, just so I know what I'm sending. The Gosnell film that we saw on Wednesday. We got some really great exit interviews, and I hadn't had time to edit it. Then I edited it, and it was ready to go up yesterday. And then I had some technical difficulties. So that will go up later today for sure. And I'm really excited about it. If you guys have not seen the movie Gosnell, it's about Kermit Gosnell, who was a late-term abortionist and murderer, just straight-up murderer in Pennsylvania. And probably one of the biggest serial killers ever. He probably is the biggest serial killer ever. The movie is life-changing, and Chris Holman had brought it up in the chat, and I believe that it is going to change the tone of the way that people view abortion. And because it's my show and I can take the time to say this, I'm going to kind of give a sneak preview to one of the topics that we talked about in the show, in the interviews. Kansas and Leah were talking at the end. Kansas had given Leah a little 12-week-old replication of a fetus. But I don't want to call it a fetus because it's a baby. It looks just like a baby. And I think what happens is in society, they get brainwashed into the phrase clump of cells. Clump of cells. It's a clump of cells. Just a clump of cells. When you see that it is a baby, it is a baby, then you recognize that to take the life of that baby, it has feelings, not maybe not emotional feelings, maybe it does, but physically, scientifically, it has feelings. So when you kill it, it's gonna feel the death. It's gonna feel death throes. Okay, it's not a clump of cells. It's a baby inside of a person's body. So I think that this is going to put to the forefront a waking up in America of young people, especially, who have been brainwashed into thinking it's just a clump of cells. So,
yeah, they don't even know. Scientific. This is a horrible thing in school today. They teach people nothing.
Gary says, go see Gosnell and take one demon rat with you. He means Democrat. Yes, Kansas will be in the video at the end. Chris wants to know if we'll do a church live stream sometime.
It's a good question. We really should.
We
What's
definitely
that? Like,
should.
More
We'll
music,
put that on
more
the
scriptures.
Yeah, we will definitely put that on the docket. Right?
Yeah, along with your giveaway.
Along with the giveaway with the necklace and the shirts. I'm so sorry. You know, I really don't like people that say they're going to do something a bunch and then they don't do it. We've been really busy, and then I got sick.
Yeah, that knocked her out.
And the Bible says, do not say tomorrow we will do this and that, but as the Lord leads. So as the Lord leads, I hope we can put that out this week. So, all right, you guys, we love you. God loves you. God bless. Remember, we have a P.O. Box.
107.
Milford, Ohio, 45150. If you want to send us your letters, we would love to read them on air. We'll be live next Friday, this coming Friday, at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our weekly roundup, possibly sometime in between. Who knows? I think that ends our show. Remember,
yeah,
it's
it'd be
not
cool
just
to do like an All
theory.
Saints Eve stream. We'll see if we can do something like that.
On Wednesday? Possibly.
Otherwise known as Halloween.
Right. I think we did that last year, didn't we?
We might have.
Maybe we'll do a church service.
That's what I was thinking.
Oh, I get it, yeah.
All Saints Eve.
I get it. Yeah. All right, well, it's also like Martin Luther thing.
Yeah.
So we could definitely make that happen.
Yes.
All right, you guys. Thank you. Sean, Gary, Kelly, Britt Baza, Chris.
We love
Maia's
you
gone
guys.
today. Britt Baza. Amber was here for a while. We love you.
This is the day.
This is the day that the Lord has made. That the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it, and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made. All right, you guys, good night. Good evening. Go get some food. You get some food. All right. God bless, guys. She already went out.
I was cold all alone. No place for